Hello, folks. This is Chris from the YouTube channels Pros and Cons and Comic Tropes, and I'm here with a short review of Joker Folie à Deux. Can we just call it Joker 2 for simplicity's sake? If you'll give me that, I appreciate it. So, Joker 2 has a character who is completely inert. I think I understand what writer-director Todd Phillips was trying to do with this film, but it is a task to sit through. This was quite tedious, not a very enjoyable viewing experience. A few things to appreciate that I will point out, but my bottom line is if I'm reviewing this on a case of just giving like 3 thumbs, I give this like half a thumb. Uh, just not fun. Which, hey, not every movie needs to be fun. The first Joker wasn't necessarily fun, but it was professional. It earned Joaquin Phoenix the Oscar for playing the titular role. And he plays this character quite well. I wouldn't really say that it's very close to the comic book Joker in any version. There's been many, many versions, but that's okay. That's okay. He plays Arthur Fleck. And Arthur Fleck in the first film was interesting, and the subject matter was interesting. And the reason I'm talking about the first Joker is that the second Joker is less of its own thing and more of a really, really, really extended epilogue to that first film. I don't think it stands on its own 2 feet quite enough to make it worthwhile, to be honest. So I have to a degree, compare them. And I'm not talking about spoilers, but the first film dealt with the failures in society to help people with mental illness and poverty. Those are valuable topics to discuss, and to do it in a comic book world of sorts was an interesting idea. It was worthy of exploration. I personally didn't love the first Joker, but that's mostly because I didn't find it that original. I did find it acted and directed, and the cinematography and the score, everything about it. It was lit great. It was edited well. It was good. But it took so much tonally and story-wise from the Martin Scorsese films Taxi Driver and The King of Queens that The King of Queens, pardon me, The King of Comedy. That would be a very different film experience. Please forgive my mistake there. But it takes so much from those Scorsese films that I'm sort of like, I've seen this before. But it was well done. It was well done. And the main character, Arthur Fleck in the first film is a damaged, weak man. And while we can't necessarily root for him to be a criminal and a murderer, we can at least embrace that he's getting agency in his own life. He's taking matters into his own hands, and he's becoming proactive and strong. So that's his character arc. He goes from like weak and timid and picked upon to, strong. But of course, he pays the price and he goes to jail. So the second film is just his journey while in prison going to trial. And it's like 2 years later. And a trial could be interesting. A musical could be interesting. Technically, this movie covers both of those things, but it is so drawn out. Also, 90% of the songs are done with characters having their voices just, breathless, like just talk singing. They can't help but talk about their feelings, but they can just barely get it out. Come on, everybody, get happy. Chase all your blues away. How much you enjoyed that is going to tell you how much you're going to enjoy this movie, because it's got to have like 20 of those songs at least. And any other songs are actually fantasy, imaginary pieces. Those are the more interesting pieces, the old-fashioned production numbers. But if you've seen the trailer, anything that looked interesting, either A, I didn't see in the actual movie, or B, is happening in Joker's imagination. So it's just song after song after song, and it's a long movie too. It's something like 2 hours, 20 minutes. Halfway through, every time a new song number started, I started seeing people trickle out of my theater. And to give it credit, it was Friday night and it was relatively full. Not completely, but relatively full. But by the end, probably about 70% of what it started with. So people were getting bored. The people in front of me were just playing with their phones. It got really obnoxious, but like people were bored. People were just falling asleep. I literally saw the people to my side asleep. It was just a very tedious, slow film. And as to what it's about, I would struggle to find a coherent theme in it because Joker himself, not a very active protagonist. I'll say who I think the protagonist probably is in a moment. But functionally, the movie is just very, very slow with Arthur just going through things, dealing with prison life, dealing with court, dealing with the media. There's a lot of people in the media that are sensationalizing the story, and he's got his fans. And I think that the theme is talking about the dangers of toxic fandom, which is fine, but to do that more appropriately or powerfully, I should probably say, because I don't want to correct it, but to get that done powerfully, I think we'd need a lot more characters that we see in the outside world that have been influenced by Arthur. We mostly just sort of see it in passing in the backgrounds, or we hear about it from the other important character in this, Lee. And Lee is a take on Harley Quinn. I would argue she is actually the protagonist because she is the person that actually is moving everything forward. Isn't quite his antagonist, really. She's not quite what stands in his way, even though she's bad for him, but I don't want to spoil things, so I'm not going to quite go into their relationship. But Lee moves everything forward, so I guess she would technically be the protagonist. However, she's definitely not on screen as much as Arthur Fleck. Now, you can actually make a film with unseen protagonists. It's very rare, but sometimes it can be done well. I would say 2001: A Space Odyssey is a film where there are aliens that have put these obelisks on Earth that evolve mankind. But that's the protagonist. They're the ones that are actually moving this story forward in that movie, and we never see them. Not really. Well, in this movie, Harley, she's called Lee, so I keep wanting to call her Harley. There's one or two times they've got a sign that calls her Harley, because I guess that's her full name, but she goes by Lee. Lee is the one moving it forward. And Joker or Arthur Fleck, there's a debate throughout the movie as to, does he have anything like dissociative identity disorder? Does he have another personality? Or is he faking it? That would have also been very interesting to explore. To the movie's credit, it really doesn't decide on what that is. That's up to your interpretation, whether he's acting, performing, or not. But in the first movie, he wanted to be a star, and it was all about performance. And in this one, yes, there are songs and dance numbers, but I would not say that it doesn't do what a good musical does, where somebody's emotions have just welled up to such a point they can't help but express it in song. Please forgive my bad humor. It's late at night. It's sort of that, but like I say, they're always sort of like tired and like they can just barely eke it out. I did it my way. So, look, unfortunately, I really can't recommend this movie. And I think that if you like the first one, there's a good chance you might not like the sequel, actually. it looks the same, it has the same people, and they're giving good performances. But it's not about the same subject matter, and it's paced very differently. And that main character just doesn't really do anything. I keep calling him the main character, but he's not the protagonist, if that makes sense. I will go now into a single spoiler, but I'm done with the review. So if you do think you want to see it, I'm going to talk about one thing, and it's something that happens in literally the last few seconds of the movie. And I just want to talk to people who have seen it and get your thoughts. So that's what I'm going to do right now. But otherwise, we're done. So here we go with the spoiler. The very end of the movie, Arthur gets stabbed to death by an inmate. And then that inmate is in the deep background, out of focus. But if you're paying attention, he absolutely starts cutting his cheeks. You know, what do they call that? A Glasgow smile, I think, is one of the terms that they use when you cut it ear to ear. In other words, a lot like the Heath Ledger Joker. And I'm watching that, and I turn to my friend and I go, they're not seriously trying to connect this to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, are they? But it wouldn't make sense if they were, because the Joker films have characters like Harvey Dent and Thomas Wayne, and they're just not the same as the ones in the Nolan universe. They could not fit. Even if you're just like, okay, it's just a different actor. Now, the ages, the experiences, the visual look of them, it just wouldn't fit. So I'll be honest, I do not get that ending. I just don't. Other than to say, I guess it's about toxic fandom building something. It's what, more efficient? A better Joker? I don't think we could argue that bad fandom results in something better, because I'll be honest, in my opinion, the Dark Knight trilogy was a lot better than these Joker movies. But anyway, those are my opinions. Sorry to stutter that out. Short review, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts below. But for me, I'm afraid it just didn't work. If it did work for you, I'd be very interested in hearing why, what aspects did work for you. Thanks so much for watching. See you real soon. Bye.